Ta'ala, and sending peace and salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We start and continue our book Safinatun Naja by Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Sa'ad ibn Abdullah ibn Sumayr al-Hadrami al-Shafi'i. So far in this book we have taken first the arkan, the pillars of Islam, which there were 5, and we won't go through all of them, and the pillars of Iman, which were 6, and then that took the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and these first 3 chapters spoke about the section of Aqidah, and this is not the topic of this book. This book is a book in Fiqh, and we took the first 2 or 3 chapters from the part talking about Fiqh. The first being the signs of puberty, and which there were how many? 3 signs of puberty, which were number 1?
Age of 15.
Reaching the age of 15. Number 2 is for a wet dream to happen for a boy or a girl after the age of 9. And number 3, for the period to start for the girl after the age of 9. Then we moved on to the conditions of using a stone to clean yourself, and we mentioned 8 conditions, and we won't go through all of them. From some of those conditions were, number 1, for the stones to be pure, for the stones or tissue that you're using to be pure, and for it to be with 3 stones, and for nothing else to mix with it, and nothing to go on the stone, stuff like this. Then we moved on to the first of our maqasid, meaning the intended actions of tahara, which was wudu. And we said that wudu, it has conditions, it has pillars, it has things that break it, it has sunan, it has things that are makruh within it. And we mentioned the pillars of wudu. How many pillars or obligatory acts of wudu were there? 6. The first one, intention, an-niyyah. The second one, to wash the face. The third one, to wash the arms up until and including the elbows. The 4th, wiping a part of the head. And then the 5th, washing the feet up to and including the ankles. And the 6th, to do it in order. Now, one thing I want to make clear is we said that there's a border when you're washing your face, your arms and your feet. There's a border. For the face, it's from the hairline until the chin and from ear to ear. For the arms, it's from the tip of your fingers, so the start of your hand, all the way until the elbows. And for your feet, it's your whole foot, including the ankle. Now, each of these borders, there's a part you have to wash. There's a part you have to wash for the wajib to be fulfilled. Meaning, I can't wash my whole face, include my whole face without going a bit beyond that border. So I can't wash my whole face without touching some of my hair, right? And that extra part you wash, that part is wajib. To go above that, say for example, let's use our arms as an example. There's a part from my elbows that if I go above, that's where the wajib is completed. Meaning I have to wash that part for the wajib to be completed, right? Now going above that, going further than that, that's the sunnah. So what's wajib is going a little bit above so that the wajib is completed, and going further than that is the sunnah. So now, there are a few points that we'll mention based on those 6 pillars that we mentioned. So stuff like, what is niyyah? Where does it happen? What time do you do it? And what is tartib? And what all of these things mean. So first, an-niyyah. It says, فَصْلٌ فِي النِّيَّةِ وَالتَّرْتِيبِ النِّيَّةُ قَصْدُ شَيْءٍ مُقْتَرِنًا بِفِعْلِهِ. To intend something, we took this definition already, to intend something tied with its action. So, to intend to do wudu and to actually do wudu itself. Together, that is the definition of niyyah for wudu. And where does it happen? وَمَحَلُّهَا الْقَلْبِ. And it happens in the heart. And this is agreed upon by all of the scholars, that this happens in the heart. The place that niyyah takes place is in the heart. وَالتَّلَفُّظُ بِهَا sunnah. And for you to speak it, to speak the niyyah, to say the niyyah is sunnah. Now it's important to mention here that this is one of the opinions that was narrated from al-Imam al-Shafi'i. It could have been that he mentioned it in a dars, but we don't find it in his books. So it could be that he took this opinion and then left it off. And it's safer to say that it's not sunnah to mention it. And the place for niyyah is in the heart. Is that clear, yeah? And then وَوَقْتُهَا, when do you do the niyyah? عند غسل أول جزء من الوجه, when you're washing the first part of the face. So this is the last time you can make that intention for wudu. Why? Because this is the first obligatory act after niyyah of wudu. Okay? Same for salah. When do you make the niyyah? When you're doing takbiratul ihram. Why? Because that's the first physical pillar, or the first actual pillar of the salah. Understand? And we'll come to all the other pillars later on. And then it says وَالتَّرْتِيبُ أَلَّا يُقَدَّمَ عُضْوٌ عَلَى عُضْوٍ. And tartib, the order, it means to not put a limb before another limb. And an important issue that we need to mention here is that tartib, we mentioned, is a pillar of wudu. If now I forget to do one of the pillars of wudu, say for example, I've washed my face, I've skipped my arms, and I've moved straight to my head, and I complete my wudu, is that wudu valid? No. Why? Because I missed two pillars. One, to actually wash the arms. I've missed that pillar. And I've also not done it in order. I can't now, at the end of the washing my feet, just do my arms and say that's enough. Why? Because it's not in order. You've done it in a different order. So what do you have to do is, you don't start the wudu again. You've done your face already. That's fine. Then you go back to do your arms and carry on from there. You do your arms, your hair, your feet, and then your wudu is done. And that is the same for any other of those pillars. So if I miss a pillar and I have done the next pillar, I go back and continue from there. Clear? Okay. Then we move on. فصل في أحكام الماء. This chapter is talking about the rulings pertaining to water. And we mentioned before that tahara, it has 4 maqasid and 4 wasail. Is water from the means of doing tahara or from the actual intended actions? Question. I'll repeat the question. Is water itself from the maqasid or the wasail of tahara? It's from the wasail, which there were 4. Water, turab, the hajar that we mentioned before, and dibagh, the chemically cleaning of the skin of a dead animal, which we'll come to later. So water, the Shaykh in this kitab, he mentioned that water is of 2 types. But we can say that water really splits into 3 types. Water splits into how many types? 3 types. The first being al-ma'u at-tahur, water that purifies. Meaning, this water here, it's pure in itself. It doesn't have any najasa in it. And I can use it for wudu. So that falls under our first category. Al-ma'u tahur. Meaning that there's nothing mixed with it that changes the water. Meaning, for example, if I get some juice and add it to this. Yeah, okay. Jazakallah khair. If I get juice and add it to this, can I call this water anymore? No, we call it juice. So that wouldn't fall under this category. Why? Because in itself, it's pure, but I can't use it to do wudu. You can't use juice to do wudu, for example. So that's our first type. And we call this also al-ma'u al-mutlaq. Also, everything is also everything that comes from the sky and springs from the earth. So rain would come under this, or the water in the rivers would come under this, the water in the sea would come under this. It would be water that is pure in itself and can purify. Okay? That's our first group. Then The opposite of that would be water that is najis, that has impurity in it. And this is what the Shaykh he mentions in the kitab. He talks about what makes water najis. And then we have something in between. So these are our third category. So we have ma'u tahir mutahhir, meaning ma'u tahur, the first group. Water that purifies itself, is pure in itself, and it purifies by wudu, or you can use it to remove najasa off your clothes. Then we have water that is najis, that is not pure in itself, meaning if it gets on you, you have to clean it. And water that you can't use to do wudu or clean yourself. That's the second group. Now our third group is in the middle. Water that in itself it's pure. In itself it's pure, but you can't use it to purify. For example, water that is mixed with something. Mixed with something like, I don't know, milk. This milk, is it pure, yes or no? Milk itself, is it pure? Yes, it's pure. It's mixed with the water. It's changed the water. The water has changed a lot, that we can no longer call it just water. Okay? Once that happens, we can't use that water now to do wudu. Is that clear? So we have three categories. That first category, where it's water like this. It's pure in itself and it can purify. Then we have the water that is najis. That is najis in itself and can't purify. Then we have the middle, which is water that is pure, but is you can't use it to purify. Clear, yeah? So we'll go into what the Shaykh says, and before we actually read the matan, I'll give you a quick summary, and then it will make the understanding of the matan a bit easier. The Shaykh, he splits the water into two. We split it into how many? 3. The 2 he splits it into is water that is considered a small amount and considered a large amount. And it's important to understand what is considered a small amount and what is considered a large amount. We're not talking about this is a small amount of water and maybe 2-3 liters is a lot. We're not talking about that. We're talking according to the Sharia, what do we consider a large amount of water? Why is this important? Because later we have ahkam that will come from this. We have rulings that will come from small and large amounts of water. So he says, al-ma'u qalilun wa kathirun. Water is small and a lot. فَالْقَلِيلُ مَا دُونَ قُلَّتَيْنِ. What is considered a small amount is anything below something called qullatayn. Now a qullah is like a vase. There was a tribe that was famous for making these vases. And each one, it would contain around 90 to 100 liters. It could contain around 90 to 100 liters. And we say that 2 of those, so how much is that? How many liters? 180 to 200. Around that is what we consider, anything below that is what we consider a small amount of water. So anything below, if we use measurements of our time, anything below around 200 liters, 180 to 200 liters, is considered a small amount of water. Okay? وَالْكَثِيرُ قُلَّتَانِ فَأَكْثَرُ. And the large amount of water is that qullatan, that 180 to 200 and above. So anything that is 180 to 200 or above is considered a large amount of water. Then we differentiate. What happens if najasa falls into each of them? Do we say that if a najasa falls into it, that's it, the water is najis? It depends. Okay? So it says, القليل يتنجس بوقوع النجاسة فيه وإن لم يتغير. The small amount of water, so what is below that 180 to 200, becomes najis if any najasa, like for example urine or stool or blood or alcohol, falls into it, even if the water doesn't change its color, its taste or smell. I'll repeat. That small amount of water, anything below, let's just use 180, anything below 180 becomes najis, meaning impure, that is impure in itself and you can't use it to purify if any najasa falls into it, even if it doesn't change. Say for example, this water here, a small amount of urine fell into this. Okay, a small amount of urine fell into this. Its color didn't change, its smell didn't change, and its taste didn't change. Is this water najis? Yes. Why? Because it's a small amount of water. It's below 180. Clear, yeah? So that is for the small amount of water. Now what about the large amount of water? وَالْمَاءُ كَثِيرُ لَا يَتَنَجَّسُ إِلَّا إِذَا تَغَيَّرَ طَعْمُهُ أَوْ لَوْنُهُ أَوْ رِيحُهُ. And the water that is a lot doesn't become impure except if it changes its color, its taste, its color, or its smell. So the water that is above 180, you have to, as a cause of the najasa itself, its color has to change, or its smell has to change, or its taste has to change. If none of them change and the najasa has fell in it, say for example we're in a sea or a large swimming pool filled with water, right? That large swimming pool is above 180 liters, so we say, okay, it's a large amount of water. Someone urinates in that water, okay? The color doesn't change, the smell doesn't change, and the taste doesn't change. Is that water pure or impure? Pure, right? Can I do wudu with it? Yes. Why? Because it didn't change its color, taste, or smell. It's not najis, and it's a large amount of water. Clear, yeah? So that is this bab. This bab talks about when can I use this water to make wudu. Very simple. Okay? Then we move on. فصل في موجبات الغسل. This chapter talks about the things that make ghusl wajib. If you remember in the first lesson, we split impurity into two types. We split into impurity into two types. The first type was the physical impurity, the one that you can find on your body, your clothes, or the place you're about to pray. That's the first type. And we haven't studied yet the different categories those fall into. Then we went to the spiritual impurities, and we split them into two types. The first being the major impurity, and the second being the minor impurity. Who remembers the difference between that major spiritual impurity and that minor spiritual impurity? And minor? For the major impurity, you have to do ghusl, and the minor impurity, you have to do wudu. So now we're talking about when is someone in the state of major impurity. When does someone fall into the state of major impurity? Meaning that ghusl now is wajib upon them if they want to pray, for example. Okay? The Shaykh, he says, موجبات الغسل ستة. The first, the things that make ghusl wajib are 6. Okay? The first one, إِلَاجُ الْحَشَفَةِ فِي الْفَرْجِ, is the entering of the male private part into the female private part. So, once that happens, meaning the top part of the male private part disappears, then ghusl becomes wajib. Even if no fluids come out. Okay? Even if no fluids come out, then ghusl still becomes wajib. Okay? وَخُرُوجُ الْمَنِي, and the exiting of semen. The exiting of semen. For both male and female. Now, the things that can come out of the male private part are 3. We have many, which is semen, and it comes at this time of sexual arousal, okay? And it has certain characteristics. It's thick, it has a specific smell, and even the way it comes out is a sign. And the reason we're mentioning this is because sometimes people might have doubts. If what has come out is considered mani and is ghusl wajib upon me, or is it just wudu? Okay? So we said that mani is something that is thick, and it comes out in a specific way, and it has a certain smell, okay? And then we have madhi, which also comes out in a lesser, sexual pleasure, okay? So it's what we would call pre-ejaculation, and it's lighter than many. And this one, you wouldn't have to do ghusl for. You would have to do wudu, okay? And then we have something called wadi, which is something that comes out maybe when someone is ill. This might come out, or you pick up something heavy, or in times of extreme cold. This is certain fluids that can come out, okay? So which one do you have to do ghusl for? You only have to do it for mani. Now what's the hukum of mani itself? Itself, it's pure. But if mani comes out, semen comes out, then you have to do ghusl. If madhi and wadi come out, you have to do wudu, but both of them themselves are impure. Meaning, if you have mani on your clothes, do you have to wash it off to pray? No. Why? Because itself is pure. Okay? But if mani comes out of you, then you have to do ghusl. However, if you have madhi or wadi on yourself, you have to wash it before you pray, because it's a najasa on your clothes. Okay? And one of the conditions of salah is that there shouldn't be any najasa on your clothes. Okay? Clear? Then the next one, wal haydu. And this is something we've mentioned already, and it is the monthly bleeding of a woman. And it has to happen after the age of 9. That is when they reach puberty, okay? And hayd is the blood that comes from the womb, and itself it has specific characteristics. It's darker in color. It has a specific smell as well. And why is it important to know? Is because there are different types of blood that can come out of a woman, and she should be able to differentiate which one does she need to do ghusl for and which one is other type of blood, okay? When nifas, and nifas is what we call postnatal bleeding. So after someone gives birth, a woman gives birth, there is blood that normally happens for around 40 days. After that stops, she must do ghusl if she is to pray. Understand? So the next one, wal wiladatu, and this is the act of giving birth itself. So what do we understand here? That if a woman is to give birth and there's no blood after that, then she still has to do ghusl. She still has to do ghusl. Even though there's no nifas, she's given birth, so she still has to do ghusl. And the last one, wal mawtu, and this becomes fardu kifaya on the community, because the person that's dead won't do ghusl for themselves, someone else will do it for them. Clear? Now these six things that make ghusl wajib can be split into two. Those that are specific to women, which are al-wilada, wal-haydu, wal-nifas, and the rest being for both male and female, meaning ilajul hashafati fil farji, wa khurujul mani wal maut. So memorizing those categories will make it easier to understand what things make ghusl wajib. Now we move on. فصل في فروض الغسل اثنان النية وتعميم البدن بالماء. The furud, the compulsory acts of ghusl, are two. The first being an-niyyah. And what does the person intend? They intend to remove their major impurity, spiritual impurity. And when is the last time they can make the niyyah? Is when they wash the first part of their body. Similar to wudu, when is the last time they make the niyyah? When they wash the first part of their face, right? And it needs to be aligned with the action itself. So now someone, if you go back to the example of the swimming pool, if someone makes the intention to do ghusl and they jump in a swimming pool, is their ghusl correct? It doesn't matter if it's head first or feet first. Is their ghusl correct? What do you think? Who says yes? One person says yes. 2, 3, only 3. Who says no? It's not correct. Why? Depends on their intention. If they made the correct intention that I want to do ghusl and then they jumped into the swimming pool, is it correct? What do you think? Yeah. So if we look at the second pillar, so the pillars of ghusl are 2. The first being an-niyah, the second being ta'mimul badani bil ma', that water has to touch every single part of your body. If you remember in wudu, when we said you have to wash your face, we made an exception. We made the exception of the underside, so the underside of a thick beard. Okay? In the ghusl, there's no exception. You have to make sure that from head to toe, every hair, every skin on your body is covered in water. Water has reached it. Yes.
Sorry, you're saying these are like the conditions for ghusl?
This is the compulsory acts of ghusl.
Say that. How many you say there were 2, right?
Only two. The first being an-niyah, and the second to make sure that your whole body has to cover your whole body with water. That water touches every single part of your body. Obviously, there's sunan that you've probably studied already. To wash your hands first, to do wudu, to start with the right side, to pour water over your head, right side of your body, left side of your body, all of this stuff, to wash your private parts if it's from janaba. Okay? All of these things are sunan. We're talking about the bare minimum for that ghusl to be correct. Now, if I do this, am I allowed to pray? Yes. Okay? If I make the intention and jump in to the sea and water touches every single part of my body, that's it. I'm allowed to pray. Clear? I will move on. فصل في شرائط الوضوء. شروط الوضوء 10. These are now the conditions of wudu. The conditions for someone to perform wudu. Without these conditions, without having all 10 of these conditions, you cannot do wudu. And some of them, you have to remove that barrier before you can actually perform wudu. And you understand what I mean when we look into them. The first one is al-Islam. The wudu of a kafir is not accepted. The wudu of a kafir is not accepted, and that is clear. What tamyiz? Tamyiz, have we mentioned before what tamyiz is? Tamyiz is different to bulugh, and this is something that a lot of people make mistakes in. Bulugh we've mentioned already. We said what is bulugh is reaching the age of puberty, and it has 3 signs. If you find any one of those signs, that's it, you've reached bulugh. Okay, tamyiz now, someone can reach tamyiz before they reach bulugh. Okay, and this is in the majority of the cases. Tamyiz has many definitions. There's not really a set age like we have for bulugh. We have 15 years for bulugh. For tamyiz, it's around 7 or 8, and it has its own signs. Okay, some of its signs are that the child can eat and drink and clean themselves. That is one of its signs. Another one of the signs is that the child knows the difference between right and wrong. Knows what they're doing. Knows that what they're doing is right, what they're doing is wrong. And the reason that some of the scholars, they say 7 years old, is because we're supposed to command our children at 7 to start praying the salah. So it's around that age that they know the difference, and they know the actions of salah, and they know what they're actually doing. Okay, so this is one of the conditions of wudu. So anyone younger than that, the wudu is not accepted. Clear? So we mentioned 2 of the conditions of wudu. The next one, an-niqa'u anil hayd wal nifas. To be free from hayd, which is menstruation, the period, and nifas, the postnatal bleeding. وعما يمنع وصول الماء إلى البشرة, and to be free from anything that prevents water reaching the skin. Anything that prevents water reaching the skin, to be free from that. What comes under this? Stuff like nail polish, it will prevent water from reaching the nail. Stuff like makeup, it will prevent water reaching the face. What about henna? Who says you can't make wudu with henna? One. Who says you can? He says this, I don't know. Okay. You can. Why? Because henna itself, it doesn't stop water from reaching the skin. It just changes the color of the skin. However, obviously when the henna is being put on, there's a layer initially that they take off, then it dyes the skin. That layer you would have to remove, obviously, before doing wudu. Clear? وألا يكون على العضو ما يغير الماء, and to not have anything on your skin that will change the water. So this is similar to the point before. Anything like paint, for example, or like a powder that will change the color of the water on your skin, you need to get rid of all of that before you actually make wudu. And what skin are we talking about? This is the skin that is required for wudu, to fulfill the minimum of wudu, right? So if I have something up here, for example, I'm not going to be washing that part. That's going to stop. If I have like a sleeve that comes up to here, that's not going to stop water from reaching the part I need to wash for wudu. I only need to wash up to here. Clear? And we'll take this bab and we'll stop here, inshallah. وَالْعِلْمُ بِفَرْضِيَّتِهِ, and to know, did I miss something? No. وَالْعِلْمُ بِفَرْضِيَّتِهِ, and to know that the actions you're doing, to wash the face, to wash the arms, to wash the hair, to wipe the hair and to wash the feet, are all fard. You have to do them. And then moving on to the next point, وَأَلَّا يَعْتَقِدَ فَرْضًا مِنْ فُرُوضِهِ سُنَّةً, and to not believe that a fard, any one of the 6 things we've mentioned in the furud of wudu, are sunnah. To not say that washing the face is sunnah. To not say that washing the arms is sunnah. To not believe this. If you believe this, then you've left out one of the conditions of wudu. And then the last one, وَالْمَاءُ الطَّهُورُ, and the water to be tahur. What did we say tahur was? What's the difference between tahir and tahur? Tahir is something that is pure. We're not talking about whether it can purify. If something is pure, we call it tahir. If something is tahur, that means it's pure and it can purify. So the water you're using has to be pure in itself, and it has to be able to purify as well. And those 8 conditions we've mentioned are for everyone. Those 8 conditions are for everyone. You have to come with these conditions if you want to do wudu. Now there's 2 other conditions, and we will end on this point. These 2 conditions are specific to the one that has a illness, and we call them the da'im al-hadath. They're in the constant state of impurity. They can't control the urine that comes out of them, or the stool that comes out of them. They can't control it. It's a sickness they have. And we add 2 extra conditions for them. 2 extra conditions for them. Number 1, dukhul al-waqt, for the time of that salah to enter. For example, Maghrib, say it just entered now, and someone has that condition that they can't control their bowels, then they're only allowed to make wudu now. They can't make wudu for Maghrib before the time of Maghrib enters. Clear? So we say that the time of that salah has to enter for you to make wudu for that salah. Clear? And then we say also al-muwalah. So it says وَدُخُولِ الْوَقْتِ وَالْمُوَالَاةُ لِدَائِمِ الْحَدَثِ, and for there to be quick succession, to wash the face, then straight after wash the arms, straight after wipe the head and wash the feet, all in quick succession. This is a condition for the person that is in the constant state of impurity. So what does that say? The Shafi'i, they say that this condition we just mentioned, making sure that all the pillars are done straight after each other, is not a pillar for everyone. It's just for those that have that condition. Okay? So technically, I could wash my face wait a while, have a conversation, maybe go get some food, wash my arms, and then finish my wudu, and my wudu would be valid. Clear? Unless I have that condition, then I have to do it in quick succession. Any questions?
When it comes to using water,
Good question.
yeah, like let's say I'm doing wudu and some of my used water goes into like the vessel or whatever I'm using, what it is. Do I keep doing wudu?
The question was about used water. We call it ma' musta'mal, and that falls under our middle category. Our category where the thing in itself, that water is pure, but you can't use it to purify. Wallahu a'lam. Clear? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.